Hi, Pam and Cam. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and talking to us about such an important topic. We're so excited to have you here. To start, why don't you tell us a little about your roles and what you do here at PC?
Yeah, Perla, thank you so much for having us. I am in my second year here at PC. So I've officially been at PC longer in COVID than in normal times. So I am looking forward to when that fact changes. I am the Director of Service Immersion in Social Justice, and I sit within the Mission and Ministry and Campus Ministry office. So that means that I help with weekly service, I help with education and advocacy, and I help with longer service immersion, whether that be like week long, like New Orleans that we went together, or Guatemala, Jamaica, Habitat, as well as pairing post grads for years of service.
Thank you.
Hi, Perla again. I'm Cam McCauley. I'm a senior at PC, and I'm the president of Campus Ministry Leadership. So Pam and I do a lot of work together. And last year I was the coordinator for ESL on campus. So there's been a drastic change just from the way that I was able to bring, people onto campus and do in-person lessons. And so now on the other side with COVID, I'm just working with campus ministry to still be able to serve students and serve Providence, but in a safer way.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much to both of you. Before we dive into St. Martin de Porres, help some of our audience who isn't Catholic get a basic understanding of what saints are.
I can take this one. Saints are holy men and women within the Catholic Church who lead as witness and examples for us. So think about in your family, who you're going to go to for cooking is going to be grandma or grandpa because they know how to cook well. Or you think about you're going to go to your cousin for fixing cars because that's what he could do well, or she could do well. So it's similar. It's this extended family in our Catholic faith who exemplify certain things that we then go to and ask for help in. So we ask them for help in how to live humble lives, or how to be activists, or how to call others to holiness. All these different examples for us on how to live a holy life, and a life that brings both the world and individuals closer to God.
So now that we have a basic understanding. Go ahead.
There's official and unofficial saints. I like to say capital S and lowercase s. So the church has a process of canonizing saints, which they go through a rigorous process of being beatified and checked and verified and made sure that they're good witnesses. But then we also believe in the communion of saints, which is a little less, which means it's our grandparents and it's our parents and it's our family members and it's the people that are unnamed and unknown, also our saints. And so there's capital S and lowercase s saints.
Oh, thank you for clarifying that. Now that we have a basic understanding of sainthood, tell us about St. Martin de Porres.
Kim, you want to kick it off? You want me to?
Well, Pam and I both love St. Martin de Porres, so you can go after me. But so I actually got to visit his tomb in Peru, and it was just a beautiful way of displaying some of the characteristics of St. Martin de Porres, because he had all of these incredible qualities. He could levitate and he could talk to animals, and when you think about that, sometimes my head just is okay, what? So to see that is one thing, and to think about his humble life, he is always portrayed as just a man with a broom and some food by his feet for the animals. And so he just lived such a humble life of service, and just that idea of he was I'm just going to do whatever you need of me. And that really just meant cleaning. Okay, so I'm going to carry my broom and I'm going to clean, or I'm going to make sure that these animals are fed. And just him being so humble, and his focus of, okay, this is what you need of me. This is what I'm going to do. He was able to heal so many people. And so I think that's why and Pam can say more. That's why we've been looking at St. Martin de Porres really for the last year, like so closely, because not only do we look to him for, our healthcare workers and those who are healing and those who are looking out for others' health, but also for healing racial injustice, because he was seen as like a mixed man that didn't that wasn't valued enough to actually like pursue religious life in the way that he wanted to. So there's just, like Pam was saying, like we look to the saints for certain things. Like we could just look to him for so many different things that have like been tied in with the pandemic and like this reignited like power for racial justice. Like in the past year, it's like he covers so much ground that I think he's just like perfect. And that's why we've been talking about him so much.
So I'm going to give you like a 101 of Martin de Porres really fast, so we get to be introduced to him. So Martin was born in 1579 in Lima, Peru. He was born the illegitimate child of a Spanish nobleman and a woman of African and Native ancestry. So Martin was born illegitimate child, but he actually was trained as a barber, which at that time would have been a tradesman with like medical and surgical expertise. So that means Martin was smart. That's what that says, that he was able to overcome this illegitimate childhood and poverty to get tradesmen, and he could pick it up and was known and created a business, being a barber, being this medical expertise. But at the age of 15, remember they start younger there, age of 15, he decided that he was called to join the Dominican monastery. But due to, what now we name as systemic racism and racist policies, the Peruvian law at the time forbade anyone from mixed race from joining a religious order. So Martin wasn't actually allowed to join the Dominicans because he was of mixed race. And so he had to join as what they called a donato. And this is what Cam was saying with a servant. And Martin still decided that like this was his calling, this is what he had to do. So even if the law wouldn't, he was called to do this, and he was gonna be a religious. And so he joined as a donato, and even though he was smart, even though he had medical expertise and could be doing a lot more, he had to join as a donato because of racist policies. And so Martin was then served the community in a really joyful way. So he cleaned the monastery. He took care of the sick of the monastery. He took care of the farming. He was a porter, would mean that he took care of the people who came in and out. And he was given the lowest tasks, even though he had the ability for more. And he also experienced racial belittlement from his own brothers, right? So he joined this order, and it wasn't like honky-dory and everyone was happy. Like there was a lot of, they called him a mixed dog, like these awful slurs to this man who joined. And one of the things that caught me when I read about Martin is that when people said racist comments to him, instead of responding with anger, he responded with, "Thank you for reminding me that I'm of God's." And like, to me, I was like, shoot, to like have a conviction that you are made in the image and likeness of God, to be able to respond that I am made like God, even in the face of this, to not be torn down and know his dignity and worth. I get sidetracked. I just love him so much. Okay, so fast forward, he's working with humility and love in the order. And all of a sudden he starts like changing the environment around him. So both the outward environment, he's starting like orphanages, he's feeding the poor of Lima, he's healing the sick of Lima, and he starts getting this reputation of known to do this. So like if anyone's sick, they know to go to Martin. If anyone is having a problem, they know to go to Martin. Like Martin's going to heal them, Martin's going to provide for them, Martin's going to take care of them. And so he gets known for this, even within his own order. He starts healing some of the Dominicans who are really sick. He's showing up at all times of the night to serve and heal other people. And so because of his love of Christ, because of his love of the order and the love of the poor, they actually break Peruvian rule and have him join as a brother in the Dominican order. So that's, I can go on and on, but I'll let you. That's the 101 of Martin.
Oh, that's amazing. You're both big fans of St. Martin de Porres. Tell me why he has such a special place in your hearts. And you talked about this already a little bit, but why St. Martin de Porres?
Yeah, so I kind of, coming into PC, I wasn't really educated on the saints that well, so it was kind of just like coming here and I would hear about it, and that was kind of just how I would get introduced to, I mean, that's just the way to do it, right? Like, just hear about it. Okay, that's interesting. I'll do some research. And I actually wear like a bunch of the saints on my neck, just like Pam's given me a couple medals. And so I like have done research from there, but Pam, like, just when you meet her, it's pretty much like, hi, I'm Pam and I love St. Martin de Porres. So when we started talking and I was doing ESL, she, would remind us, and like we would do our meetings for Service and Justice, and she would just remind us like, oh, what about this lesson that like we found from St. Martin de Porres? What about this prayer to St. Martin de Porres? And so it was kind of just coming in and doing some research on him. And then it kind of just became like I said before, okay, here's another issue that like I can kind of relate back to St. Martin de Porres. Okay, here's another thing that I can relate back to St. Martin de Porres. And I was preparing to do service last year, obviously got canceled because of COVID, but like St. Martin de Porres was our patron saint for that group too, that was preparing to do service, just to have that idea of, okay, this might not look the way that I wanted to, but I'm going to do it with joy anyway. And I think that that going to Peru was just like an extra cool experience. But I think that he's such a good example of like a normal person that did great things with great joy and is now a saint. Because I think sometimes when I hear of stories of the saints and it's so long ago, it just, I feel like a little bit detached from it. But I think just like he's such a good example of like, that's someone that I can relate to, and like that's a good role model for me. And so I think that's why I love St. Martin de Porres, just because things have gotten so crazy, obviously, and I want to keep my, my sights set on service or doing these things with love. And yeah, I think that's just like a great model and very relatable, even though he has, these extraordinary qualities.
Yeah, for me, I was introduced to Martin when I lived in DC for about 8 years, 4 years of undergrad, and then 4 years of working there. And I used to go to this church down there, St. Augustine's. It's the oldest Black Catholic parish in DC, and it has a gospel choir, and it's just a really lively and diverse parish that I enjoyed going to so much. And there was a statue of Martin at the back, and I was leaving once, and this older woman like was sharing with me her love of Martin, and I just kind of sat and took her wisdom, and she was just sharing how for her he became a symbol of humility and conviction of faith. And I loved that. And I grabbed on to this like older woman's wisdom of like humility and like strength of faith. That's what I want. And so that's when I first started like really falling for Martin, was actually because of his humility and like complete knowledge that he was chosen by God and made in the image and likeness of God and called by God to do great things. Or called for God to do whatever. It wasn't even great things, as Cam said, small things. And I was attracted to that. I wanted to be like that. I wanted to follow in that. And then I just started reading more and more about him. And the more I read about him, the more inspired that I was by the witness of life he led. And then fast forward to last year, 2020, I realized that Martin was like the perfect patron for 2020. A patron saint is like someone who we name for a certain cause, right? So there's three causes that Martin is the patron saint of. And it's racial harmony, social justice, and public health care workers. And I just thought, shoot, that's 2020 and 2021. Like, that is who we need, someone for racial harmony, social justice, and public health care workers. And then add on the fact that he's a Dominican, add on the fact that we have 2 statues of him on campus. It was just a perfect fit to really lean into my love for him.
Wow. Those stories are incredible. Thank you so much for sharing with us. What can the knowledge and understanding of someone like Samaritan the Poorest provide our campus community to strive toward building a beloved community?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, there's a few things that I would invite our community into that Martin helps us with. I think one is the humility to know that God is part of the work. You know, like when we try to claim the work only for ourselves and not invite God into it, then we don't invite the dream of like a completely just and merciful world to be in it. So the invitation to have God be part of the work that we're doing allows the work to be transformed, not only of this world, but of the kingdom that God promised us, which is full mercy and justice reigning. So I think part of that is inviting God into the work. I think the second is the humility to recognize that it's a long process, but to continue the work and not give up. That God has called us to be public servants and justice workers, and to do from the most menial tasks of justice to the most grand. We're called to all of those, and to not lose hope and to not lose sight that even in the smallest of tasks, we're glorifying God and bringing about justice. And then I think the third is that even in the light of discouragement and hardship, that there is lessons to be learned and ability to grow. So even as Martin experienced racial belittlement from his own order, that it didn't sway him from continuing to do what he knew he was called to do.
Wow.
I think too, because in some of our small groups in Campman, I've talked about St. Martin de Porres too. And I think, like Pam said, just to have that conviction, just throughout your life, either in a small task or a large task, that you are created in the image and likeness of God, but to remember that God made you to be a saint. So like Pam said, even if it's not like capital S, whatever, that's who he made you to be. So to have that focus on even the little and the big tasks, because building a beloved community, and Pam has to remind me of this all the time, it's not going to happen tomorrow. Like, everything's not going to be perfect tomorrow. And while that's hard to grasp and, hard to accept, I think for a lot of us, it makes even more important those little things, and like those things that you take on personally that maybe people around you start to notice, or, that start to influence the space around you. And so I think just having that joy, Pam reminds me of this joy to embrace that struggle and start with the small things and work up from there, because that's what God wants from you. It's not, something that you're fighting against. So I think the beloved community would benefit from saints like St. Martin de Porres, because like I said before, it is a very relatable saint, and he has such an incredible story that it's inspiring. And it kind of I feel like if you read about him from beginning to end, you're kind of just you're like, I want to do that. I want to do things like that. And then you can start to look, if we're talking about PC, you can start to look, okay, where are these things that I can start doing, or where can I find more joy in these tasks that I'm doing? And I think that will help, like I said, in the long run, to make this beloved community that does, like Pam said, serve the public, that does care about social justice and racial justice. And then that way it'll all just be an integral part of our community.
For sure. Both of you are so knowledgeable on Samaritan de Porres, but how can individuals learn more about him?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot out there about him on different, you can honestly just Google him. We have a few things on the campus ministry app Torch. there is a couple sections on Martin de Porres, a couple prayers to him. Father Batts, who is one of our Dominicans here on campus, wrote a whole thing on St. Martin de Porres, which is beautifully written. And then I think I would love for people to come stop by my office. You know, I love to share about him and talk about him. I have little bits, little stories of him and prayer cards and medals, and just the ability to share about him. They can come and stop by and grab something and go. Those are probably the easiest ways.
Yeah, I would just say Google him, like just Google this story. And there's actually a lot of really great artwork about him that, I don't know, there's just like, I think if you are trying to learn about like a bunch of saints and there's all these terms and all this stuff, and like Pam said, even just like a prayer card is just beautiful to just like remember him. There's a lot of nice art about like some of the miracles of him, you know, healing the sick and things like that, that I think help to, you know, kind of stick him in your brain as as a saint that you want to remember. But I would just start with Google.
Thank you. Pam, just quick question. Where is your office located?
Oh, great question. I am in the basement of the chapel. So if you come to the bottom of the chapel, I'm in through the doors. I'm right next to Father Peter Martyr's office. And my door is almost always open. I will make sure to leave some prayer cards in my mailbox outside my door too. So you can stop by anytime and grab some.
Thank you. We often talk about how the work of building an inclusive community is the responsibility of all departments. Where do you all see yourself in the stride for building an inclusive community?
I think for myself as a student, so, you know, with majors, minors, all the other classes that we have to take, I think something that I'm always conscious of is every classroom I enter, you know, like you have a different experience with a different professor, and then you have different classmates, and I, you know, I'm very conscious of, you know, like, okay, am I holding back from correcting this person or like saying this thing, or, oh, like, should I talk to my professor about that after class? Like, I'm just conscious of that because, like I said before, like those little changes, like even if it's just person to person, I think that's just, I don't know if it's a responsibility or just something that students can focus on to make sure that our learning environment is inclusive and our learning environment is all of these things that we need. So I think that's one thing. And I think the other thing, you know, like for my role with campus ministry, it takes up a lot of my time. And so I try to listen as much as I can, because if I'm in a leadership role where I could have some influence, or I could suggest something, or I could, you know, make something happen, it shouldn't just be of my own thoughts or of, you know, like our staff's thoughts. Like I try to sit down with students and I try to listen to them, or be very open. And Pam is the same way. Pam's store is literally always open and students can just walk in whenever they want. But I think that part is important because in order to make our environment more inclusive and more understanding, like we have to just take the time to listen and hear what's going on. And I think like hear the stuff that we really don't like, or that you hear and you're like, I kind of wish that wasn't true. Like that stuff needs to be listened to and processed in order for things to change, I think. So I try to be, you know, in between with the students and staff, since Campman is involved with the staff, because they want to help, but they also don't know the student side. And then the student side wants staff to hear them, but sometimes they don't know staff. And so I think that part is really important. And I think that goes for, you know, all of the clubs. I think that goes for, you know, all of the classrooms, all the professors, all of our staff that are involved with students. So I think maybe those are the two ways I would say I try to focus on the inclusivity part to build a community.
And I think for us as a department, this is not just a call for our campus, but this is a call by our God and our faith to build a just society and a just world. And we're responsible for this campus, and that's what part of it. You know, this is a call for who we are as Dominican and Catholics. Our identity is wrapped up in justice and a just ordering of things in society, a just society, and truth and dignity of each and every human person. So the work of IDEI is central to who we are as a Catholic and Dominican school. And so the work of IDEI, of course, lies within mission, and we're together in this efforts because it's the core of who we are as Catholic and Dominican.
I am all out of questions, but is there anything else that you both would like to add?
I think I just want to leave everyone with one image of Martin. So you'll find Martin de Porres statues on campus. You'll find him by Martin Hall. There's a big statue of him with a seating area outside. There's also a little koi pond by the art department with a little Martin statue there. And when you look at the statue, he's clinging to the cross, and he's holding a broom. And I think if we think of those two imagery in our lives as we move forward for a racially just world and a campus in which every human and every person's full dignity is expressed and supported and loved, then I think it can help us to have the hope of the cross and the humility of service to others. And so that's, I think, what I just invite everyone to with Martin, is to have hope that this work will come about and this justice will reign, and the humility to serve others in whatever task is needed to make that come about.
Yeah, I would say too, I'm not going to be at PC for much longer, so I keep saying, like, if you want to text me, call me, do that. But I think just to like push like all the staff in campus ministry, like as I said with Pam, like all the doors are always open. So feel free to like go to Campman, ask questions, introduce yourself, to have just another space on campus. But I think too, and this is something that I've been trying to do, and it's hard obviously with COVID, and communicating with people is so weird, but just like ask questions and just like talk to people, because I think that I've learned best like from the example of other people. And it doesn't even need to be like this huge, big, strong faith. It can just be like a little, oh, I like how much she trusts herself, or I like how joyful she is doing this task, and like learning through models of other people. So just to sit down and like ask questions, and just like don't be afraid of feeling like, like you're looking at this big saint. Oh, I'm not like that. Like you are, and you were made the same way the St. Martin de Porres was made. So I would just encourage students on campus, and then even, as you move forward, as you meet new people and do new things, like just ask questions, just get to know other people. Because I think that starts to show like the best model that we can have for building like this whole world that we want. Like Pam said, it's not even just on campus, it's afterwards also. So that would be my little tidbit.
Pam, Cam, thank you so much for joining us this morning and talking to us about St. Martin de Porres. Thank you.
Perla, thank you for having us. I love any moment that I can share Martin with others.
Thanks,
and bringing
Perla.
the legacy of that older woman in DC to life to others. So I'm always grateful for that.